Julian Freeman, author, speaker and social filmmaker. I've not had one of those on the programme before. Welcome to Perfect Health with Elaine Godley. Lovely to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you, Elaine. And yes, social filmmaker, really anywhere where good things are being done in the world and people are being helped and transformed and the world is becoming a better place. That's where I go. That's what it means.
I've had a look at your website. For the listeners, what's your website address, Julian?
It's called www.starsofwellbeing.com, all one word, Stars of Wellbeing. And I either make films for individuals, or I make films sharing ideas, or I make films for organizations to help them show the world, just what good stuff that they're doing in the world. So it's all about 3 H's for me. Humanity. I think there's so much that we've lost in our modern society about humanity and what that really means, what that loving kindness and supporting each other and all those good things that I think people need to be reminded, and that's one of my missions. Humility. I've not got a big ego. It's not about me. I'm not trying to build a big name for myself. I'm just trying to help the world. And then humour, and I can be a bit serious at times. So got to remind myself to keep things light and not too serious.
Brilliant. That's lovely. Humility, humanity, humour. Excellent. I like that. That's very good. So how did you get into filmmaking, Julian?
Really, I'd been making online products, so info sharing products, and I realised that the thing that I really enjoyed was the filming, and filming gives me, it connects me with so many people. I get to meet so many interesting people with such great stories, and hope for sharing those stories is just so hopeful for everybody else who watches them. So and then it's a man thing. I enjoy the whole gadgetry thing of having cameras and making films and editing and all that kind of stuff. It's all that's all great fun as far as I'm concerned. So it's one of those, it turned out to be, one of those do what you love kind of jobs. So I don't have my wife says to me, "Are you working today?" I said, "Working? I don't think of it as work." So and it's not. It's all play. It's all playful. It's all discovering. It makes life an adventure for me, and that's one of the things I love about this. In my previous career, it was about making money, and that really didn't feel like an adventure to me. So this does. This does.
That's brilliant. And the point you make about doing what you love. If you do that, you actually don't work because it's fun, isn't it? And you'd happily do the thing without payment because you're doing the right thing for yourself. You're being authentic, aren't you? You're really walking your talk.
I was talking with a lady today about she's an artist and lives in northern Norway, like right up in the Arctic Circle. But she was talking about how art has. It almost demands to be born, to be created, and I certainly get a sense of that. Some of these films just need to be made. They're stories that just need to be told, and because it's their time, and so that's really exciting. It feels really important too. Yeah. So
that's great. And timing is so important, isn't it? We're constantly told with social media we should do this, we should be that, we should look this way. There's so much pressure today on all of us, not just the young people, although I think for them it's probably worse because at least we know that we can rely on life without the internet sort of thing. But to do what you love and be so passionate about it and know that you are helping people at the same time, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, does it?
No, definitely not. But then I think you're touching something which is a really important subject, which is that we're all being pushed, for want of a better term, in the direction of our needing better circumstances, needing more material things, stuff needs to be right before I can be happy. And I don't know if you can see this sign behind me.
I can, yes. Happiness is an inside job, absolutely.
Right. And it is. You can be happy. That's one of my key things, is you can be happy regardless of whether you have got the car or the house or even the partner that you most desire in the world. You can still be happy. And if you start from that place, of peace, calm, and understanding who you really are, then everything gets so much better and easier. And that's one of the messages that I'm really inspired to share. It's like, stop. People have got it backwards. Stop looking in the wrong direction. Start looking in the right direction for you, and everything changes. Everything.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. For over 20 years now, I've become an expert in the last 20 years in behavioural profiling, and I've kind of become aware now of how so many people, like you say, are looking outside, not looking inside, and yet we've got so much strength, happiness inside of us. We don't need other people necessarily to be happy. I live a very simple life, but I have fun every day. I don't have a partner, but I'm happy. I'm happier than I've ever been. I don't need material things. I've had them. I appreciate I don't need them. I've had money. I now don't. But I feel that I'm richer now than I've been in my whole life, because I have the contentment. I know that I've done the right thing, as best I can with what I've had and all the rest of it. And that's such a thing that is so rare to find. And I've found that I've never fitted in. So the story that you're sharing with your films is kind of how we should all live our lives. And it's a real passion of mine. So anyway, this interview is about you, not me. So
you're absolutely on the point, because I think even with one of the mental health has been become a big issue, become a big topic recently in recent years, and I think we've got it wrong. I think we keep talking about mental health, and what we're talking about is mental illness, and yet when you're talking about mental illness, you're missing the point, because we are mentally healthy. When you're born, you are the perfect human being. And it's only later on that you start getting some of these conditioning and other things, the pressures that make you believe that you're anything but healthy, mentally healthy. And I think the same could be said of physical health. I mean, when you cut, your body goes into automatically healing you. If the mental part of you works exactly the same way, if you have some kind of, let's call it trauma or bad experience, if you leave it alone, it heals, But what we do, and what we start in our way of dealing with these things, is we dig into it. It's like picking the scab off all the time, the cut will never heal if you keep picking at the scab. So if people were to get that innate sense of themselves, that we are healthy, that we are mentally balanced, and that peace is just a thought away, at any time, or happiness is just a thought away, then I think that would change a lot. So that's why I'm inspired to be speaking to people like yourselves, is because this message is such a simple message. It doesn't cost millions of pounds to do. It doesn't take years of training or psychotherapy or anything. And when you bump up against some of these truths, when you kind of go, oh yeah, you might be right, I might be okay after all, then oh wow, what a change you could make in the world with very little to do.
I think you're absolutely right. I think society, whilst it's great that people are now talking about mental illness or whatever other description we put on it, it also adds pressure, because we're then constantly reading stories, hearing people talk about, well, you're not right because of this thing and that thing. So there's almost more pressure now because it's being spoken about than there was before it wasn't spoken about. So the social media aspect on one hand is marvelous, but on another hand it's also can be debilitating and push people back into themselves because they're not living up to what the impression should be on the outside world, the outside rather than the inside again, the point you made earlier.
I can remember one of the things that really fired me up was, this is quite an old story now, but there was a guy in the Cotswolds who was a quite rich man and had quite a swanky house and cars and so on. And he was in the news because he shot his family, set light to the house and asphyxiated himself in his car. And it then transpired that his business was a day away from being declared, bankrupt, and all the banks foreclosing on him and so on. And I'm like, wow, that's a horrible change of perspective where you've got so caught up in how life needs to be that you don't realize anymore that you've got a loving family, you've got and you're okay, and that's what it's all about. It's not about some business situation that forces you into a place where you think you need to take everybody's lives, including your own. I mean, that's totally avoidable, totally. And we have a lot of that. And the biggest issue, not the biggest issue, but there is a big issue with men. Women are much more prepared to talk about in a understanding way, to talk about their issues and with each other and so on. And yet men have this, I've got to have this stiff upper lip, and I've got to keep it all inside me, and I'm not allowed to talk to my mates. And the only thing we can do is drink beer and laugh together. Now I'm being a bit too cynical there, but you get what I mean. And that's not healthy, mentally healthy for people to be bottled up. So to some extent, there should be a more openness to, if people thought that being mentally ill was like having a cold, you'll have it for a few days and then it will go away, then that's what I'd love for people to, but people kind of go, I've got mental illness and it's like pneumonia, it's life-threatening. That's where we tend to go with it. And then it becomes consuming, and the mental illness becomes them. And it's not, it never is. And as soon as you can see that it's just the cold and give it a chance, it will go away again. And you'll be back to being the you that is there underneath all of that thinking. Then everything's fine.
Yeah, there are, of course, people who do have chemical imbalances and various illnesses that have some very fancy titles and so on. And obviously we're not dismissing those people, but I hear what you're saying in general terms. It's a lot more hyped up than I believe it's a lot more hyped up, as I think you do as well, than we give credit for. So how did you kind of change then from your previous life? What did you do in your previous life?
I was a kind of an IT internet man, so did lots of stuff bringing technology to businesses and consumers. And a lot of what I did was about not the systems themselves. Ultimately, it was about people using the systems and people struggling to use the system. So I was a people supporter all my corporate life, and then at the same time I became a VP for customer services in Europe, so looking after the most important clients. But also I found that by looking after the teams of people that worked with me to support those clients and helping them to be the best people that they could be, that meant that our customers got the best service that they could get. So I was a people supporter in all ways, I guess. And that's kind of why this social filming really works for me, because it's about supporting people, and it's about people supporting themselves. So that's still a theme that follows me through my life, and just seems to be who I am.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You're really walking your talk. I noticed you used the phrase people that worked with me when you were a vice president. people working with me rather than people working for me, which a lot of VPs that I know would have said working for me, and that as an example, just that very small language change, you know, shows that you are a people person. And it's very interesting. Those business leaders that I meet or have met in the past, those who use the language with me instead of for me, I think that says a lot. So that's great. So tell me some of the happiness stories that you've filmed.
Ooh, I have a lovely one where a few people I pulled together. It's a film called "Are You Worried About Your Mental Health?" And there's some very simple stories. One about a lady who she starts her story by saying, "Well, I was in a wheelchair in the hospital and my partner had just left me, and I didn't know what to do." And you're looking at this lady on camera, and she just looks a lovely, beautiful, you know, calm, happy, and you're like, how could you even? I wouldn't have even thought that you could be in that position. How can you even be telling me that story? So just to see that was a lovely. You know, that was amazing. It's just another example, and I have many of them, of people who go through some very difficult circumstances in their lives, and yet somehow, you know, to use another metaphor, we're boats that are designed to float. We don't get overcome by the waves of our circumstances. We always float over the top somehow and come out the other side. And there's another one where there was a lady I filmed in Norway who had her partner, she split up with her partner, and he took his life. Now, I don't know whether that was because of what happened, but she obviously at some point thought it was something to do with her. She was at fault or something, and then she realised, again, floating over the top of the wave, you know, that he had his own problems, and she couldn't be ultimately responsible for him. And that so let her off the hook. It's like, again, using my sailing metaphor, if you hold on to some of these ropes when the boat's in the wrong position, it really is stress and strain, and it all feels very difficult and dangerous. And sometimes if you can just let go in these situations, then the boat comes back upright, everything feels much more relaxed and natural, and you sail on. So those are just two. And another one where a guy who, this is a guy who fits bathrooms for people. So he's a small business, self-employed, and he was making promises because he wanted to, you know, please his clients and so on. And he was making promises and putting himself under tremendous pressure to the point where he stops, he pulls over to the side of the road and rings his wife and says, "I think I'm having a heart attack. I'm going to call an ambulance." Well, it turns out that he didn't have a heart attack. But it was his body giving him some messages that say, you know, you're headed in, you know, you need to do something different. And he listened to it. He listened to those messages, and now he still has a successful plumbing business, but he doesn't put himself under the same pressure. And so I just wanted to come back to your previous point. I totally believe that mental health and physical health are completely linked. They're inseparable. So sometimes your chemical imbalances, this is a chicken and egg thing in my view, sometimes your chemical imbalances are caused by your mental state, or it could be the other way around as well. And somewhere, if you can break that circle, then you can make big changes. So
absolutely, yeah. And it's being aware of the situation that you're in as well. And sometimes we need help from the outside, whether it's a partner or a counsellor, or, you know, just a good mate that says, you know, hey, do you realise what you're doing? You know, you're tying yourself in knots at the moment. And sometimes it takes somebody from the outside, because you can't see the wood for the trees. And I love your sailing analogy about holding onto the ropes, and then sometimes, you know, the best thing is to let go. And in the cancer mentoring that I do, helping people to come to terms with it, get through it, or live with it, whichever is their choice. The same thing happens. They're holding on to things and stuff, once they realise that actually by letting go of things, they can then sail into a happy future. So yes, that analogy fits so many different areas of life.
But also I found, there's another film that I've done with a lady who's been through cancer, and she now does a similar sort of thing, a coaching thing for people going through cancer. She found that once she'd let go, and she was much clearer, she was much better able to manage all the procedures, etc., that she was going through, and make decisions about her, care path and stuff like that. So it really has some positive benefits, some tangible benefits, to be able to live from that place of more mental stability, regardless of what might be going on for you in your life. Yeah.
Indeed. Is that film public? Is that on your website, or is that a private?
Yeah. No, yes. If you go, I've got a YouTube channel called Julian at starsofwellbeing.com. If you go and look there, they're all there. Various individual stories, and also there's an alternative psychology that I've been following for 8-10 years now, called the 3 Principles, and it's basically everything I've been saying to you today, which sounds like common sense, and here's one of my old corporate sayings now. Common sense is not common practice, which I think is very strange, because it is just common sense. So, but there are a bunch of those kind of films on that channel as well. So just coming up to 100,000 views now. So I'm hoping that we can, keep tipping the scales. People keep watching. I'll certainly keep making films, and hopefully it will help people with their lives.
Fabulous. It's been a real pleasure meeting you, Julian. Thank you very much for spending time with us this afternoon. And your website, once again, for people to look at some of these films is
www.starsofwellbeing.com.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Julian Freeman.
Thank you, Elaine.